Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another BIM After Dark Live. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Jeff, also known as the Revit Kid. I have a special guest today, which I'll introduce in a second. What I wanted to do first was just run through some little housekeeping items. First, again, thank you for joining me. If it is your first time joining me, then please make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are here every Thursday at 7:30, and so far this is episode 12, so pretty cool. I've been doing this for 12 weeks straight. The other thing I wanted to mention too is that on previous streams, a lot of you have asked about this shirt in particular, but some of the other shirts that I've worn, about if you can get them or where you can get them. And so originally I just kind of printed these and brought them to conferences when I presented and stuff, and I would hand them out. But I decided to set up a little shop, and unfortunately I had to recreate it. I shouldn't say unfortunately. I had to recreate it because I couldn't find the Photoshop file. So I think the new design is actually a little nicer. So if you're interested in the shirt, check it out at shop.bimafterdark.com, and I'll put that in the chat right now, and also in the comments afterwards. So without further ado, what I wanted to do is introduce Daniel Stine. So let me just pop open his video here. And Dan, thanks for joining us.
Roll.
Everyone, again, this is live, so if you're here with us today and you're not looking at this in the future, feel free to chat away. I'm going to be checking on it. If you have any audio or video issues, let me know. Sometimes having guests, it can be a little bit of a challenge. But Dan has joined us today. He reached out. He's been enjoying, I guess, the happy hours before, and I've known Dan for a little while in his work. And one of the things he was really excited about talking about today was Enscape. But a little bit about Dan first. Some of you guys may be here because you know Dan from his books. So Dan's got a book and a few books, which is pretty cool. Dan, I don't know, that must feel pretty cool to have written a Revit book, or 2 or 3 or 4. This book
keeps me out of trouble.
Yeah, this book is your latest, I think, right? The command reference?
Well, 2021's coming out, but
okay,
yeah, that's
right.
the latest of the series of books. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this one, just so you guys know, this is with Jeff Hansen, and this book, the command reference, is it's almost like an encyclopedia of Revit. It's if you ever need to know about any random menu, icon, or location, then you got it. I mean, this thing is like it's crazy how detailed it is. So pretty cool. But Dan is also a blogger at BIM Chapters, right?
Yep.
And also has made a recent career change. So maybe introduce yourself first to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, and then we can go on our little tangents here.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a registered architect, as Jeff mentioned, a blogger, author, husband, father, recently chicken keeper, but as you'll see with our move coming up, that chickens found a new home. Let's see what else. I teach graduate architecture students at NDSU in Fargo, North Dakota, which is about a 5-hour drive from here. I'll describe that situation maybe at some other time, but it actually is pretty cool. We're doing remote teaching before remote teaching was cool, with all the students actually in the classroom.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining again. And the other thing that Dan mentioned, actually, I think he announced this week or last week on the blog.
Well, I'm announcing it right now.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Let's go ahead and say it.
Yeah. You want me to lead?
Yeah,
and
go
then
for it.
You can share what you have.
Sure.
So yeah, tomorrow's my last day at LHB. It's been a great almost 17-year run. Previously worked at 3 other firms, including BWBR in St. Paul, Minnesota. But I'm going to be moving to San Antonio, Texas to, wait for it, drum roll. I'm going to be the director of design technology at Lake Flato.
Awesome. So cool.
Pulling up stakes and driving straight down I-35.
20-hour drive, I think you said, right?
Yeah. As long as I don't make any wrong exits with the U-Haul, I'm going to make it there in one piece.
Yeah, that's a heck of a drive. So when Dan mentioned that to me, actually, it was pretty funny because, and I think some of you might have noticed this in the past. I think I was speaking at Built or something recently, the last Built, or maybe the one before that, and my the background to my laptop at the time was a Lake Flato or Flato? What is it? Flato, right?
Plato. Yep.
Lake Flato house. And when you mentioned it, I pulled up my book. Lake Flato is one of my all-time favorite residential architects. So this is their houses book, and you'll see I have sticky notes and all kinds of stuff all over. That's how, and it's actually the binding is falling out. That's how often I use it. The binding is falling out, and so that's really exciting. That's pretty cool. Because I know in the past I knew someone who used to work at Lake Flato, and now I'll know someone who currently works there, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I never knew someone at the time who was working at Lake Flato, so it'd be really cool to talk to you in 6 months or so and see what you think of how they do things, because like I said, I'm a huge fan of their work on the design side.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I also knew two somebodies who used to work there, and then somebody who currently works there, Stephen Campbell. He actually worked at Revit pre-Autodesk acquisition, and then at Autodesk. So pretty exciting. We had some interactions in the beta projects for Revit.
Very cool. All right, awesome. So again, I want to thank Dan for joining us. I want to thank you all for joining us. If it's your first time, again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. And so Dan was really excited to talk about some Enscape stuff. And so I'm assuming everyone here is here because they're really excited to see Revit and Enscape and some of the cool things that Dan is going to share. Dan, I remember actually, before you even mentioned this to me, I remember seeing your grass blog post. When was it originally posted?
Oh, well, let's see. Over the last 2 years, I've written 4 Enscape's blog, about 40 some posts. So this was about close to a year ago, I would say. I mean, I did a post on my website like right when the grass feature came out. So I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
It could have been that one. Yeah. Maybe.
That might have been like close to 3 years ago, I bet.
I just remember seeing it, and I couldn't believe how many words you wrote about grass. It was impressive. So without further ado, what we're going to do is there's a couple things that we're going to do. Obviously, this is live, so feel free to ask questions as you go along. Dan has agreed to give away, was it 4 books, I think, right?
Right.
So Dan agreed to give away 4 books to anyone here live, so thank you for doing that, Dan. And the way we're going to do it is ask good questions, and if we answer your question live here on air, the first 4, shoot me an email at jeff@therevitKid after the stream and let me know that we answered your question, and then we'll hook you up with the book, one of Dan's books. So thanks for doing that.
Does it have to be a Revit or Enscape question, or
no? Any question. As long
what color is your shirt?
If I find it interesting enough to read on air and ask you, then I guess we'll use that, right?
Yeah,
because unfortunately there is a lot of conversations, and sometimes it's hard for me to get every single question. So make sure it's a good one.
Yeah, I definitely left it to Jeff to decide how to give the books away. That's actually the hard part. And to be honest and fair, my publisher was generous enough to give the books away, STC Publication, and they're going to pay for shipping, which unfortunately is limited to North America. So sorry for anybody
to mention that. Sorry, guys.
Outside of North America.
I've done that a couple times with T-shirt giveaways where I didn't realize how difficult it was to ship a T-shirt from the United States, from like a UPS down the road or something, to Denmark. It's like, it seems like a simple process, but the cost and time and customs forms, it's like, this is nuts, guys. So sorry everyone out there who's not from North America. I apologize for that. But
hopefully a bunch of people didn't just drop off.
Yeah, right. Awesome. So Dan's got some prepared content, so we're gonna let him run through it. And I encourage you guys to ask questions along the way. I'll probably interrupt if I have questions, and I want this to be interactive. So with that, I forgot. Yep, cheers. Cheers, everybody. So Dan's got some espresso. He's got a late night
fresh
ahead of him. And I've got some more of my port wine. Those of you who follow me for a while know that I'm a huge fan of port wine. So it always makes sense at this time of night, in my opinion. So with that being said, Dan, feel free to share your screen and take it away. And again, guys, I'll be checking out on the chat and seeing if we got some nice questions and some cool questions and any conversations that you guys want to have. So again, thanks everyone for joining us. And Dan, I think we're starting to see your screen here.
Ready to go?
Yep, I see Revit
and
Enscape in the background. Yep, there's your mouse. Okay, perfect.
Little bit of overlay. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think we had a little bit of a lag there. That's all.
This first thing I'm going to show you is super cool. This is a custom content library created by my friend Peter Shitakata. He works at A Plus I in New York City. He's really super involved in the Revit beta forums and also in the Enscape forums. And they're a pretty prestigious interior focused design firm. So a lot of the content that comes with Enscape, cars and exterior trash receptacles and things like that, just aren't something that they have a need for. And they do a lot of high quality presentations. So Peter did some reverse engineering and got some input from the folks at Enscape, and he wrote a tutorial on the Enscape forums. And then I republished it on my blog a couple weeks ago. Yeah. But you can see there's just a beautiful array of content here that you can create. Obviously, there's some special steps involved to make all this happen, but there's some really amazing content in here that they can use to further their brand, and the content with entourage, silhouettes, and then this is something he actually, for me, did a little bit of work to get something that had been previously created for an RPC content. And that is, you see the things are running a little more sluggish while I'm sharing.
Nice.
So that's me.
Yeah, look at that, huh? Very cool. So I actually just posted the link to your blog post that from a couple weeks ago for how to make the custom assets. If anyone's really interested in digging in, and I'll also post it in the description after we're done live here. But so this is so how many assets does he have here? It looks like there's quite a few.
Yeah, there's 400. You can see in the parentheses after all. Yeah, so you can see my Keen shoes. It's just really great content. Similar quality. It's on par with what Enscape has. And there's the opportunity to toggle to the out of the box or the Enscape provided content, but all of his content is actually local, which is nice.
So it loads a lot faster, it looks like.
Yeah. And then like a week later, he gave me another tutorial on creating leaves. Some of the cutouts and things that you need to do to make vegetation. So here's a cool plant on a stand.
Very nice. Yeah, those look great. So now, do you know how were these scanned objects, some of them, or were they mostly modeled objects?
I believe modeled. Like mine, the model of me was scanned. But I'm not actually sure, to be honest.
Yeah, because those plants look phenomenal. The detail in those plants.
Yep, and I know even Enscape, talking to them a bit, most of the vegetation is modeled just because it's not really possible to scan something that's complex because you just can't see it from every angle, right?
Yep. Even that furniture, that chair, the way that chair you just placed in the patio, the way the fabric folded in those creases,
right?
And that's I know you can model it, but those are things that those are details that look extremely realistic.
So there's the A Plus I logo. Got to give Peter a little plug because what he's done here is phenomenal. People have been asking for this for quite a while now, right?
Yeah.
And
so definitely after this, if you want to share any links or resources to him, I'll put it into the description after the stream for sure.
Okay.
Wow, look at that, a T-Rex. There we go. Now we're talking.
Gotta have a little fun.
So you have a bunch of these in this house. Can you run through a couple rooms and show how they look? Or
yeah, so actually this model is a sample project that anybody can download. And it's funny when I said I'm going to work for Lake Plato, I pulled this up and I forgot that nobody could actually see it.
That's okay. We see it now.
Yeah.
I held up the
So
book though, so that's
no,
okay.
top ranked firm by Architect Magazine.
Hmm.
So on the Enscape website, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's free sample projects. And the one I'm using today is this residence. It's a really beautiful model with really awesome assets in it.
Hmm.
Later, I'm going to be opening up this IES light gallery when we talk about lighting as well. So when you download this, it's a zip file with the textures. And one thing, if you end up copying textures, if this is a little side option or thing to be aware of, right? If you go into Revit options and point to that folder, this allows Revit and Enscape to find those textures. So if you're downloading stuff from Hayworth or Steelcase, Coalesce, you have to download the texture separately, right?
Hmm. Awesome. So then this I recognize the sample scene. Did you replace some of the, are these mostly the Enscape assets that are in that scene? Does it look like I
Yeah,
thought
these.
maybe I saw a couple new ones or no?
Yeah, so I think they have some things in here that aren't available in their library. So there's some pretty nice
Hmm.
sofas and
Hmm.
pillows and cushions.
Cool. All right, awesome. So the A plus I, was that the name? I'm sorry.
Correct. A plus
A plus
I.
I. So A plus I, awesome content they created, and definitely more Enscape custom content is a welcome addition to anything. So definitely check them out. I'll post a link, like I said, in the description at the end of the live stream.
All right. Should we move on to the next item?
Yeah, let's do it. So
All right.
custom assets, number one, and I will say that I do know Enscape is working on increasing their library. Every release they have more assets, so there will be more assets, I'm sure. I can tell you, I know there's going to be more assets in the future too. So they're increasing their assets, but people are able to create their own, which is phenomenal.
All right. So next we're going to talk about grass.
All right.
And I should mention too, I'm using this 3D connection mouse, which it's been a little choppy now that I started sharing the screen. Normally it's pretty flawless.
Huh.
You know, it allows you to, with look, mom, one hand.
Yeah, interesting. I've never got into the 3D connection mice. It was never. I don't know. Just it just didn't feel natural to me. But that's just
Yeah,
everyone has their thing.
works. Right? It works a lot better in Enscape, and if you reverse or invert the settings so that you push down on it, you go down, and you pull up, you go up. But so grass. One thing that I find that a lot of people don't know is you can adjust the grass.
Yeah.
So the
first thing I noticed was the dandelions.
Right? And those are some hardy dandelions, right? Those,
yeah,
those
and they look awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know some people don't want them in their lawn, but they look great in renderings.
Right, and so that's an Enscape asset. That's what these big squares are. So you're kind of limited on sort of the shape.
Yeah, so that's a custom asset from his library.
No, this is a Enscape provided content.
Oh, cool.
Yep. I've used that in a couple of projects myself.
I didn't even know that was there. I knew the planting and stuff, but that's awesome. So, all right, look at that. I learned something right there. Dandelions. They have assets for it.
So I have pick by face turned on so that I can select the grass, and you can see the material is called grass. As most people probably know who dabbled in Enscape, if the word grass is in a material name, and sometimes that's unfortunate for like art glass that has the word grass in the name, right? Mm-hmm. You have to remove that in some cases. Mm-hmm. But the name, if it has tall grass in the name, and I zoomed in by the dandelions just so we can actually see the change happen. Where'd the dandelions go?
Wow. So would that work if you said tall green grass? Or does it have to be this? It has to be tall grass is the exact term.
tall grass. And now I'm going to show you how to deal with color in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So tall grass, another option is short grass. Wait for it. There it is. So the short grass is sort of a nice manicured looking lawn. Now, interesting enough, as most people may know, Enscape also works in SketchUp and Rhino, Vectorworks, ArchiCAD. In those other tools, Enscape made their own material editor because there's like SketchUp, really doesn't have the controls to manage a material, whereas Revit has one that does most of what you need, so it doesn't make sense to make another one. But in SketchUp and those other tools, there's actually 2 sliders for height and variation. That gives you like ultimate control in the height here instead of just the names. And there's one more called wild grass. This is mostly tall grass of varying height.
That's awesome. That gives a lot of control. I knew grass. I honestly didn't. Well, I shouldn't say I didn't know. I just I didn't utilize it as much as I guess I should have. The wild grass I didn't know. That's pretty cool.
Now I'm going to switch that back to short.
Now the default when you just say grass, is that considered the short grass or is that a medium?
It's medium.
Got it.
Right. If you short, just grass, and tall grass, and then wild grass are sort of the 4 hierarchies.
Awesome.
All right, so I'm going to set it to short, and then the next thing that's kind of helpful to know is the grass color. I also wrote a blog post on Enscape's website to get different species or different types of grass, and the one in the sample model here is already sort of doing what I'm going to describe, but the grass that comes with Revit, the albedo is way off. There's two, one's sort of called site, one's called grass. One's way too dark and one's way too light for the albedo, which in the gaming world, they've nailed that concept of getting the base material, the color, the correct color. So here you can see there's a pretty large variation in this texture that they're using, right? So there's a really light color there.
Yep.
If we switch this out for this one that I created, I'll just right click and hit open real quick. This is what I use on all my projects. I actually found it a few years ago. LHB has a survey crews and they have access to this really high res aerial data. So I found this big empty field and I did a little Photoshop on it just to even out a couple of spots. But I always use this one because it has a nice variation in color.
Yep.
And then what I do is I make this 120 feet square. So another little Revit tip, not so much an Enscape tip. This is obviously a metric based template file. You can see it's listing centimeters. But if you come in there and type 100 and the foot symbol, even in a Revit dimension, like if you're drawing the length of a line, you could type 25 cm or 25 m, and it'll convert that metric value to a hard imperial value, or vice versa.
Yep, that's a great tip. That's something I think a lot of people forget, is that Revit is unit agnostic.
Right.
It's very friendly to back and forth, and that even works on formulas too. If you're typing formulas into dimension strings or something, you can do them all in feet as long as you're putting the units there, which is great. That's a good tip.
So now we have a nice grass color, and of course it depends on what kind of grass you're trying to achieve and where the project is, but you can see there's just a nice variation in color. It's not just this solid monolithic color, which is never a thing in reality.
Right. Nice. Yeah, it's
so
a little desaturated too, which I think always looks a little better in renderings.
Right. And what's happening then is each blade of grass is actually sampling the texture under it. So we can do something sort of fun. I'm going to do a sub-region. Jeff's already seen a preview of this.
It's okay. I don't mind seeing it again.
Yep. So I'm going to make a new material once this is done. So here's my sub-region. I'm going to create a new material. I'll just duplicate some material. Call it grass. And nobody can answer this question verbally, but what's the first thing you need to do after you duplicate a material?
That's a great question. I hope. Actually, let's see if we have any answers. So, what do you have to do when you duplicate a material, everyone? I actually have a post from many years ago that's one of the most popular posts on the blog about this.
I have a Revit idea about this we should put in the notes too, so everybody can go vote for it.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I have it February 3rd, 2014.
Nice.
So I'll post that link in there. Oh,
yeah,
somebody got it. Peter just got it. First one to answer. Duplicate the appearance asset. Thanks, dude. I think that deserves a book, right? What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. He's cheating though, because he and I have talked about this recently.
Maybe he doesn't get a book then. We'll let you decide that.
Yeah, actually, I think it was a tweet that he replied to Phil Reed, and a link to my Revit idea.
Yep.
But
no, we'll definitely link to the Revit idea because that's awesome. Yeah, so 2014, so 6 years ago, I posted, and it's called Double Duplicate for Less Headaches. So there you go.
Yep, so I'm going to go pick a new custom image, and this could be a sports team logo, right? It could be anything you want. But in this case, it's going to be the Revit Kid logo. And I think from my earlier tests...
Actually, Dan, you know what? That was a repost. I just clicked into it. That was a repost from your blog, I think.
Oh, really?
Nice. Check that again, because I just clicked into it, and let's see. Double duplicate. Oh no, it's a dead link.
Yeah, maybe it points to the Enscape blog. They actually just redid their blog, and a whole bunch of my links on my website to their blog are now dead, unfortunately.
Did you write some posts on AEC bytes?
Yeah.
There we go. That's what the link was to. The dead link to AEC bytes. All right. Well, maybe we'll have to repost that. We'll have to make that again. Awesome. So cool. So you're putting the logo in. Awesome.
Yep. There it is. I must
There we go. Cool.
my size adjustment didn't work originally.
Awesome. So you can do sports team logos, all kinds of good stuff. And I'm assuming now when you do it this way, if you just have the word grass in it, it's always going to be the medium grass, right?
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. So someone actually had a question that I think is pretty good and that's related here. So let me...
yeah, let's hear it.
I lost it. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So John Gray, John, thanks for joining us. He asked, he said that grass keyword is an amazing feature. What are there any other keywords in the material names that work with Enscape?
That's a good question. There used to be, but more for SketchUp and Rhino. But once Enscape made their material editor, I believe most of those went away.
So now, if memory serves me right, water has to be the water asset. It's not the name.
Oh, correct? Right.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think it has to be the water material asset for Revit, not the name, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, yeah, there were some that I used to remember too, but I don't think that any of them work anymore.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Well, if
So
anyone from Enscape is on the chat, feel free to chime in. And then if I think of any when I repost this on the blog tomorrow, I will. But that's a great question. So that was Josh, I believe. I lost your comment now. Wow, you guys are
a winner.
Cool. I think he's one of the winners. So shoot me an email at Jeff@the_Revit_Kid, and that's one book. That's a great question.
Unfortunately, it's 1 a.m. where the Enscape folks are, so they may not be on.
That's true. Well, they have some people in different areas of the world, so we'll see. You never know.
Yep. So you can see the grass of the
there we go.
Sports team, right? And then if you scroll up, let's see, here it is. So this is the material browser or the material editor in the non-Revit platforms. So you can see the grass settings for height and height variation. And then just lastly, I do a little example here of the different grass types and how to achieve the correct color based on what your design is calling for. It's always a good thing to have real world things in your design.
Can you change the grass type in Revit?
Or
is it only the heights?
Only the heights.
That was just colors based on the. I got you.
Yeah, colors based on the material or the asset.
John Gray, sorry.
The appearance.
I just got the comment. It was John. I apologize, John. I called you Josh before. Awesome. Well, that's a really cool tip. So, first tip there was double duplicate materials for less headaches. So when you create a new material, always go over to appearance and duplicate the asset. Huge. And then being able to apply material to the grass, the blades actually take the material, which is super cool.
Yep. All right. Are you ready for number 3?
Let's do it. I think everyone else is ready. I was just reading through. There's some good chit chat, but no major questions.
So next we're going to talk about real world application of glazing in Enscape. Again, an important thing when you're working on a multi-million-dollar project for a client and you pick the glass, you sort of want it to look right in the renderings, right? So there's different things like the color of the glass, the visual light reflectance, the visual light transmittance.
Right.
All of those things can actually be achieved pretty accurately in Enscape. The first thing that's interesting though about reflectance, if you ever open an out-of-the-box Revit template, it's using the glazing material type, so not generic and not the new advanced ones. But the reflectance is set quite low, so it almost looks like there's no glass if you're just like students. So thinking, my books and my blog is heavily geared towards students, and when you were blogging as a student, right? That's most people are using the out-of-the-box template.
Right.
So all three of the glazing material types, you can make it with generic glazing or advanced material. Advanced material has some limitations in the Enscape workflow. Generally stay away from that, although I'll show you one cool thing about it. But all three of those have a Reflectance slider. And interestingly enough, if you look at a cut sheet for real world product, so where's my scroll bar? So I've actually, because tomorrow's my last day at LHB, I've weaned myself off of LHB technology, and I'm actually using this laptop I wrote a blog post about. Not meant to be a big plug for that, but Dell sent me for free to try this, what they call the world's thinnest, lightest, smallest 17-inch workstation laptop. It's a
interesting
precision 5750, and it has a RTX 3000 in it, and it's a half-inch thick. It's pretty awesome, but I don't have a PDF viewer, so I'm trying to, in the browser, trying to scroll over. So this glazing, right? There's a natural color based on the materials that were used for the glass.
Mm-hmm.
There's a visual light transmittance value, and then there's the reflectance value for interior and exterior. So if you use an eyedropper tool, you can get the color. And I actually just finished updating a blog post for Enscape and had some amazing discussions with their developers about some of this. So it's awesome to share that here in that blog post so people actually know how it works. Because who would have known that the reflectance value here from 0 to 100 has nothing to do with this value of 14% or 7% reflectance.
Wow.
Right? Did you know?
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I've always just found one that I really, really liked in settings and just rolled with it. But this is eye opening. Keep going, man.
So what they've done is they've applied some real world physical constraints to the slider. And in their research a couple of years ago of literature, they only found up to 12% reflectance in any product literature for glazing manufacturers. Here you can see 14. If you scroll down, there's a couple even higher, but those have some special coatings. So if you're around 50, it's 4%. So anything in Revit around 50 or lower is going to be like there's no glass.
Right.
And then if you crank it all the way up, you're only at 12% of reflectance, which again is a real world physical example. So why make it 100%, which would be like a mirror, if that's never going to be correct for the material type called glazing, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then you might know, and we'll see this when we get into the material editor, but one material has two sliders, and they just use the average of the two to figure out what this reflectance is.
Wow.
So you use the eyedropper, you get that RGB value, and then in Revit, well, actually, we want to figure out what material was used for this glass. Mm-hmm. So why don't we just select it in Enscape, and we can see the material used.
There we go.
Another secret.
Another little secret. Actually, if you want to maybe unpack that, show users how. I think that there's a setting that you have to turn on for that, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, now it's just the B key. So
okay. It used to be there was a checkbox, right, where you had to turn on BIM information or whatever.
Right, and I don't think that's still a thing. I think
awesome.
I hid the controls down here, but you can see there's
just the B key.
There's a B for BIM.
Yeah.
So B for BIM, and you can select any object in the scene.
B for BIM.
And see information, all the Revit metadata, basically, right?
Yep.
And I'm going to save another new thing that's coming out in version 2.8, so you'll really like that. So we know what the material is. Mm-hmm. I'm going to swing back into Enscape. And I'll actually select it here again so I can just get to the material directly. So we'll try.
Oh man, the amount of new users that I have to explain tabbing through curtain walls to when I'm teaching classes, it's just so not intuitive for people. Yeah. I get it, you know.
Totally agree. So here's one of the glass types that was in that cut sheet. Mm-hmm. And here's another thing that I learned working with the developers at Enscape on this blog post is that you basically want to leave the color at 0. And Enscape doesn't transmit light through the glass. It's just one of those real-time rendering things. Mm-hmm. It reflects the color of the glass, and that can be achieved by adjusting the tint. Mm-hmm. A lot of places on the forums and in blogs, if people are purely looking at adjusting the visual light transmittance value, they'll just enter a grayscale. But if you want the color of the glass to show up, you need to actually derive the visual light transmittance based on color, not just grayscale. And one cool way to do that is if you use an advanced material. So that in Revit 2019, they came out with basically the PBR materials, and I think you've written a blog post on that, right?
Yep.
PBR materials.
Yeah, in the last a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, when they first, I ran through, and that's super cool. I mean, they when used correctly, man, can they look really, really nice.
Yeah, totally.
I'll definitely post a link to that in the chat for sure.
Related to that, there's one little secret. If you're replacing the material asset and you go to miscellaneous, so the appearance asset, miscellaneous, and then base materials. Here's the five fundamental advanced materials that you can use, and one of them is transparent, which would be for like a glass vase or something that would refract light. And then there's glazing, which in Revit's rendering engine, and then similar in Enscape, it doesn't distort light for efficiency. But then the glazing has a value for visible transmittance, which is actually something that's now used in Autodesk lighting analysis tool for doing daylighting calcs. This actually works. And when it first came out, it was sort of broken, but you can plug in a color here using that eyedropper tool, and then maybe adjust the luminance to stay in the same color range. But as you do that, you'll see the visual light transmittance value adjust. And so the reason I point this out, even though this doesn't completely work in Enscape, you can use this to derive your value and then come over to, so this is the one we're currently on, which has this sort of blue tint to it. If we select this other one, it's a lighter color. Remember I mentioned there's two reflectivity sliders, so it averages those two, so just make them the same.
Right.
And then we hit apply, and you watch the material update, and you should see it change to have that tint of, it just updated. So you can see that tint of green now in the glass. And so this is another example with the glazing material. So this is something between advanced and generic that Revit came out with a few years ago. The sheets of glass doesn't matter, but again, the reflectance and then the tint color, you can basically achieve the same results, whether you're using that material shader or the generic one. And then again, you want to sort of stay away from the advanced option. But that's getting real world glazing into Enscape. Phil Reed has a post on LinkedIn too about getting some frit patterns and things like that.
Awesome. Sweet. That's cool.
I think that's all I wanted to show for glazing.
Fantastic. I was actually writing down notes to make sure I got it all in the show notes, because there's so many little tips coming up. I want to make sure I capture them all. So thanks for that.
The grass and the glass, both of those are updated posts on the Enscape website are coming out soon. I just wrote a couple of new posts for them. You mentioned some of their people are in different parts of the world. Gemma, she's one of their social media people that I work with on the blog stuff, and I think she lives in Brazil, if I remember correctly.
Cool.
All right, so should we move on to lighting?
Yeah, let's do it. I think everyone's engaged.
I
was digging through. There's a couple questions, but nothing. Actually, can you import IES data for lights was a question. So.
Oh yeah, we're going there.
Looks like that leads us right into it. So Elijah, thanks or sort of.
Actually, I think I'm gonna. I should have thought this through. Before I leave this model, I want to quickly talk about custom Skybox.
Oh sure.
And so the lighting file I'm going to open is kind of blah. So that'd be kind of a bummer to use that one. So I also did a blog post for Enscape. I don't know. This was. You can see there's still big chunks of ice out there in the world's largest freshwater lake, Lake Superior. So this was sometime in March, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we're going to build a building on this site, and we want to have an actual Enscape background, or an actual background in Enscape. And what's cool about that is the reflections in the glass and even things inside the building end up reflecting the real world, which be almost impossible to get all those subtleties if you're doing post production with the background.
Mm-hmm.
So you can take some sort of 3D camera. In this case, in that example, there's a Rico Theta S. LHB has this Rico Theta S, and then also a GoPro Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's like a 4.2K, and this one's a 1K.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically take two pictures. This is how I do it, anyways. You can see me standing there, right? In a big open area, you can't get far enough away with your phone. Mm-hmm. You lose connection to be able to take the picture. So you take one, and then you move really quick and take a second one. And then you do some, easy Photoshop
yep.
magic of those two overlaid. So, I mean, other than removing me, this is a raw image out of the camera that can be used directly in Enscape. Awesome. So this is the actual image I'm going to use right now in Enscape. So I'm going to go into the settings. You can see all my favorite Enscape commands are on the quick access toolbar.
Yep, pinned them there. Very nice.
And I'm going to go to Skybox and pick a custom Skybox. And what we're going to see here is the good, the bad, and the ugly of this. There's definitely some drawbacks to this. So here's the background. And this again is the 1K image, so it definitely is a little bit lower quality.
Yeah, it's definitely looking for more resolution.
Yep. And they just made an adjustment too that reduces the memory use of the Skybox background. So hopefully it doesn't actually also mean quality loss. Mm-hmm. But when you're inside the building, even if you're looking towards the building, you're going to see reflections in the glass of the background.
Definitely.
Where it really starts to fall apart is depending on how big your site is, right? You can't get too far up before all of a sudden things start looking really weird or too far away from the building.
Yep. Yeah, the scale is a little wonky there, right?
Yep. I'm sorry, I'm kind of moving kind of fast, but the point is that if you're in a room and you're not moving around too much, it's going to look good. Mm-hmm. But the reason the ones that come with Enscape work is because they're really far away, right? The mountains and the tree line.
Correct. Their subjects are extremely far away from the camera, so to speak.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the background. That's all I wanted to show there.
360 camera and Skybox, and there's also I should mention that there are lots of Skybox images, stock online if you wanted to look. If you wanted something that's not directly your site, but something that's similar, or and you just don't want to use the Enscape ones, there are some good websites out there with Skyboxes.
And if you played with this in the past, there are some newer settings related to the Skybox. You can have Enscape find the brightest part of the image, because it really, if you use a HDR image, it's not really deriving light from it like is set in an HDR image. Mm-hmm. But even just a regular image, you can check this and it'll move the Enscape sun to align with where it thinks the sun is in the Skybox, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And then there's also an option to change the overall brightness, because it used to be if you used a custom Skybox and then you switched it to nighttime, the background was like still super bright and odd looking. So this, you can see, just adjusted it, and the background changed to be much darker.
Great.
One last Enscape trick: if you double click on the slider, it resets it to the default.
Nice. Double click on slider.
Lighting.
So lighting. So actually, that was a question from Elijah. So Elijah, thanks for the question. And I guess for that, we might as well give you a book, considering we're showing it, right? So Elijah B, thanks for joining us. Feel free to email me, Jeff at the Revit Kid, and say you heard your question. All right, so let's see.
So I opened the next Enscape file that I showed you that you can download from the Enscape website. And I'm going to have to go in and turn off this background now. This is why I wanted to show it with the previous model. I'll just set this to white ground. So this is a sample that has a ton of IES files.
Mm-hmm. And this one is in the same location as that other one, which I think I posted. If not, I'll post it in the description on the Enscape website.
Yep. So I've one of the ideas I threw out to Jeff, and if we didn't want to talk about Enscape, was to talk about lighting design, because I do a lot with that as well with the Loom tools or the makers of AGI 32, and so Revit content with photometry, something I also recommend. You're designing real world things, so might as well use real world light definitions. Mm-hmm. Enscape has some real challenges, or Revit has some real challenges, like Loom Tools doesn't, and Enscape still does. Mm-hmm. If the light source is in the geometry, nothing lights up, right? Mm-hmm. And the Enscape family editor will give you that warning. The thing that's sort of wrong about that is the light source includes already all the reflections on any of the geometry or the housing. So it should just ignore the geometry in the family to emit the correct light source. And so even when it's positioned down below, like a pendant indirect, obviously can't now shine through that fixture to be direct or indirect. It can only do one. And not only that, the light that shines up and hits the geometry then is reflecting off of it, which is wrong in Revit's renderings and Enscape, because, like I said, that photometry already includes all reflectances relative to the housing. All right, so a question that comes up a lot, and this is one of those secrets, is Revit lights are always on. People are like, how do you turn on the lights? I don't want the lights on only at nighttime.
Right.
Well, in this case, there happen to be a couple of really bright ones, so you can tell that they're on. Mm-hmm. But because of the auto exposure, it usually washes them out, right? So there's a setting for that. Just that all by itself is kind of helpful to know. And it's artificial light brightness. So you can basically crank up the artificial light brightness to get your hot spots and still have that notion of a wall wash, or imply to the client that that's really going to be a good spot for a light fixture. But next thing that we'll look at, and if you see any questions or comments, obviously feel free to stop me and ask about it.
Definitely.
So if we set this to nighttime, they have a really nice array of settings related to the initial color, the filter. So a filter might be a actual filter or a gel pack that can change the color of lighting. And then you can see the different shapes. So again, the reflection off the housing of the light produces this really interesting pattern on the wall. That's purely defined by the IES file, nothing that's going on in this case in particular, because there is no geometry that would cause that to happen. But so this is a good tool to sort of reverse engineer how the lighting works. And one of the things you can do in Revit then is turn on the light source.
Yep.
To visualize that. And if you remember over here, at the end and the top, there's a red light. So if we select that and go to Edit Type, and then down to the lighting options, you'll see initial color. So this is set to fluorescent cool white. Notice it's not red. So the redness is coming from the tint, which is also not red. Maybe I have the wrong one selected.
Maybe you're on the wrong
But
side.
yeah, I might be. But one of the things I wanted to mention though about initial color that's super important if you're making your own lighting fixture content or even some of the light fixture manufacturers, the color temperature actually doesn't really matter when you're doing lighting calcs to like derive foot candle. So a lot of times people might ignore that setting in Revit because it just doesn't matter what the color temperature is to relative to the foot candle. Almost, it's not 100% true, but mostly true. So this ends up being some generic setting. I forget which one. It looks like this really pasty orange yellow. The default light fixture is something really bad. So you want to come in here and set it to whatever you think the value should be. It could be daylight, which is or white. Get it something.
So what you're saying is the initial color temperature affects the color, but doesn't affect calculations.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool. So one of the questions someone had actually about IES is that, oops, I just missed it. Does Enscape read intensity from the IES file?
The initial intensity?
I guess so. Is what the
I assume is what they're talking about. Yeah, I'm quite sure it does not.
Yeah, me either.
So if you want to adjust the brightness of that fixture, not all of these work the same in Enscape. So what I do is to just try and remember which one it is. I'll just crank it up like obnoxiously brighter.
I have a feeling it's on the other side.
I think
you're
right.
reversed because of the wireframe. Yeah.
So
there it goes.
Yeah, you can see that changed quite a bit. So I'm totally on the wrong side.
Well, that's why you couldn't find the red, I guess, right?
Exactly.
Hey,
and you notice how I just kept rolling with
show.
it?
Don't forget, this is a live show. It's all good.
Yep. Yeah, so wattage is difficult because most people don't know how to calculate the FSE, and I don't. I talked to some of my friends at Loom Tools, and it's a really complicated process. So those two actually work together. So luminance, and I believe that's why Enscape favors one versus the other three. So I just made an adjustment there, and nothing changed. Wait for it. Obviously, a 3-watt light fixture wouldn't emit much light.
Looks like it wants you to get out of that dialogue, maybe.
Oh, no, I think, well, maybe. Let me try changing it now to... Yeah, you're right. Get out of the dialogue.
Yeah, it's not like materials. Yeah. All those Revit dialogues, all Revit dialogues aren't made the same, apparently.
Yeah. So there, it definitely changed. So it looks like that actually does work too. So nothing like trial and error on a live show.
That's awesome. That's great.
Crank that way up. Yeah. So that still is affecting it, which is great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think that answered ACAD's question. So thanks for asking the question. ACAD Gatsu is his username. So shoot me an email at jeff@therevitKid. Let me know that we answered your question on here.
Just so you know, I can't see the comments, so
that's okay. I'll let you know if there's anyone making fun of you or anything like that.
No, don't tell me that.
I'll tell you after. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, cool.
No one's making fun of you. Not in live chats on YouTube. In comments, they might do it on YouTube, but
Yeah. Who would give people a hard time on social media?
Awesome. So it looks like you got one more for us.
Well, yeah. Do we have time?
Let's do it. One more.
Okay.
We might as well power through, right? It looks like everyone's still here, engaged. So some people actually just
Yeah.
showed up. So those of you who just showed up, thanks for joining. The replay will be live right after, so if you missed the beginning, feel free to jump back and check it out.
Yeah, I threw in an extra item here. So material samples.
Mm-hmm.
There's a file that you can download from Enscape's website with a bunch of sample materials. And then there's a file, I guess, I don't know if you have a way of sharing files. I could share this with you if you wanted to provide a link.
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
I mean, my blog is just the Google Blogger site, so it's kind of hard to share files that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's like no place to put it.
I'll if you send me the file, what I'll do is when the replay posts on the blog tomorrow, on my blog tomorrow morning, so at the Revit Kid, I'll have a link to download that file with it, and I'll put it in the YouTube comments too, or description.
So again, there's some sort of cool ways of reverse engineering some of the materials. Oh, and there's one last thing I got to show you before I zoom in on these materials.
Sure.
And if you have the current beta of Enscape, and this will be in the version 2.8 that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So we typed B on the keyboard to get into BIM data.
Yep.
If we type C, we get into the collaboration tool, where we can right click and create an issue.
Interesting.
It renders that view, so you have a recollection. Issue number 1, and what's wrong with this thing that you want to share with the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then down at the bottom you can save it. And now you might be thinking, wow, there's so many collaboration tools out there. Why do we need another one?
Right.
Well, if you don't like this one, just dial it into BIM track.
Hello. That's pretty cool.
Right?
Wow.
So seamless collaboration
with really, really, really pretty pictures.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Oh, that's pretty neat. I was wondering where you were going with that. That's super cool.
Yep,
I actually, since we're on the topic, I just, this year is when we first started using BIM track quite a bit on 2 of our projects, and I continue to be impressed with it. So super cool. Super cool.
Yeah, they got an awesome technical engineer on staff now, Carl Storms.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of people out there may be familiar with Carl. Carl, what's up, man?
Yep.
I'm sure Carl's gonna watch this in the future if he's not watching it now.
Right, so. Right. And then you can mention it on BIM Thoughts and Simply Complex. And
there you go.
This will have a ripple effect that we won't know its full extent. So you can see how you can.
We just opened, right? What Pandora's box did we just open?
So you can set the status of the issue. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, very cool. Very cool.
All right, so back to materials. There's just some really awesome materials we were talking about, glazing, obviously. So look at this example. You can see it going from not really a really low transparency and reflectance up to this really nice sphere that you can really see.
Mm-hmm.
You have to download this asset with the zip file, put it somewhere, Enscape and Revit can find it to get that texture to show up.
That's a nice
chain link fence. So all of these you can go select it in Revit and look at how the material is set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, materials always look so great on spheres, don't they?
Right. Yeah, some of them do. some of them can look a little weird.
Very cool. So this is an asset library that's using the PBR type materials. Is that what this material file is?
Well, no, actually, I believe these are all just generic materials.
Okay.
You can see they all have the little orange icon. Okay. So now we'll switch over to mine real quick, and this will be the final example. And I actually set this up completely using all of the advanced materials.
Okay.
that actually come with Revit 2019, 2020, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
These are actually pretty nice materials. While that's loading, and then even once this opens, I'll get Enscape opening. I'm sure you're familiar with where the materials are loaded on or stored on the C drive,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Or actually, I'm going to the wrong spot already. So program files, x86, common, Autodesk, materials, textures, and it'll be interesting. Does anybody know what the difference between 1, 2, and 3
That's a good
is?
question. Let's. I think we have one more book left, right? Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, if you guys know the difference between 1, 2, and 3, answer it in the comments
I'm,
there. So we're in the materials, texture library, and Revit, and so we'll let them answer, and so we can jump back to that.
yeah.
Oh, so this is a cool little file. So this is the advanced file that you set up.
Yeah, so this is just something I made. I actually added a chair and a table with some nice sort of chrome legs.
Mm-hmm.
And these materials that come with the advanced assets are really cool because they actually have, most of them are like 4K textures,
Mm-hmm.
and they're larger areas. So they're larger images, so you don't see the repeating pattern as much.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a unfinished plywood, which
Yeah.
is really pretty nice looking.
It is, yeah.
And then there's also a really nice oak floor. Well, this mahogany one is pretty nice. And these have the reflectance map. So as you change the time of day, there's going to be some dull spots in the material. All the in Enscape 2.8, there's some pretty cool bump map adjustments for the non-Revit applications of Enscape, where you can do some really deep texturing. Unfortunately, I don't think that's an option for
It'd be nice
Revit.
it'd be nice if they put that in the Revit version.
I know.
We could always use
So-
more bump, right?
Yep, exactly. So steel.
Looks like we have a bunch of answers. Who answered first? So Henrik answered and said 1, 2, and 3. The files are bigger and better, which I guess is kind of correct. But then Danny answered and said material quality. So I don't know who we should give it to, Henrik or Danny.
Well, who answered first? I guess.
Henrik did. So I guess we'll give it to Henrik. So because I think we all knew what he meant. But thanks, Henrik.
Yeah.
So shoot me an email, Henrik, at Jeff@therevitKid. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
so-
1, 2, and 3 are, and I guess you can go through them real quick if you want to show.
Right. So if you select this image 102, you can see it's 195 kilobytes. Image 102, 766 kilobytes, and if you hover over it, see it's 512 by 512. And then 102, it's 2.75 megabytes, and it's 1,000 by 1,000. Now these aren't, of course, these are the whole history of materials in Revit. So if we come in here and sort by size, this is kind of fun. And sometimes not so much. So one of these image files that comes with Revit is 14 megabytes, and you're gonna love this. This is it.
Oh man!
I don't know what that is. I've never used it, but
Yeah,
some of these are pretty.
it looks like a zoomed in shot of a brick face or something, with no repeating pattern or anything.
Right. It's that's a bizarre one, but you can see this is a 4K image, 4,000 by 4,000,
Awesome.
and this is also looks like a similar. I think this is a brick. What is it called? Brick light blend.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
the advanced materials are just a nicer, higher quality and larger area to have less repeat,
Mm-hmm.
or ability to see a repeat. Here's some glass, different glass materials. So if you're using spandrel glass,
Mm-hmm. Awesome. This is great.
there's actually one last thing, and then we can wrap it up. don't ever use the sealing material that comes with Revit's template,
Oh
right?
my God, don't ever, ever, ever use it.
There's actually a pretty nice one with the advanced materials if you're going to at least use something where
Yeah.
the metal actually has a reflectance separate from the acoustic tiles, the way
Oh,
the
great.
advanced
Yeah.
materials is set up.
Awesome. Yeah,
You'll have
no,
to
that's
see.
definitely a good tip. Is don't ever use this stock. Don't ever use this. There's two things you should never use that are stock. It's the stock Revit red brick and the stock acoustic ceiling.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thank you. So you're gonna share this file, and I'll share it with the community,
yep.
in the description below, as well as on my blog post at the Revit Kid. So thanks for doing that. I appreciate that. And Henrik also relieved his free book because he's in Germany, so Danny gets it.
Oh, okay.
All right, awesome. So if you want to stop sharing your screen, we can see each other again,
Yep. I'm
and
working on
everyone can
that.
see us. There we are. Hey,
Oh, am I back? Okay.
you're back.
I'm
Awesome.
back.
Well, I mean that was awesome. I even took a whole bunch of notes, especially because I want to try and capture it a little bit in the blog post. So I think you threw in a whole bunch of tips and tricks. So thank you for that. That's really cool. I think there's a lot of things that people didn't know or maybe are figuring out right now as far as Enscape and Revit are concerned. So thanks for doing that, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Before we wrap up, is there any where can people find you? What's the best place they can find you?
LinkedIn,
Awesome.
Dan Stine,
Dan Stine.
Stine,
All
BIM
right.
chapters, Twitter.
Awesome.
You know what's funny about Twitter is my username is Dan Stine _MN.
Yep. Yep.
MN
Oh,
is from Minnesota.
are you gonna change it to underscore TX?
I don't know. You can change your username, right? I've never done
I
it.
actually don't know either. I don't plan on getting rid of the Revit Kid, so
Yeah,
who knows what will
right.
happen if I do. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll link all that stuff in the description below as well as in the blog post. So, Dan, thank you
Okay.
again so much for joining us. I hope everyone out there enjoyed it. Again, if you really like this content and you like this channel, definitely subscribe to this channel here on YouTube. And yeah, with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Dan, again, thank you for joining us. This has been fantastic. Everyone
Yeah,
have
thanks.
yeah, of course, of course.
Thanks for having me. This is a blast. I've loved the engaging format that you've had throughout this whole series. So pretty awesome quarantine experience, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm hoping to continue it outside when we're finally outside of quarantine, whenever that comes. But so for now, we'll just keep rolling with it, right? So
Yeah, totally.
definitely. I want to thank everyone again for joining. We're gonna wrap it up in a second once I figure out how to click. Here we go. Thank you for joining. Everyone have a great week and a great weekend. You can find me at the Revit Kid everywhere. Just write the Revit Kid, you'll find me. TheRevitKid.com. This will be live the recording will be live right after we end here. It'll be posted on my blog at the Revit Kid. And again, if you're interested in the t-shirts and stuff, the link for that is shop.bimafterdark.com. So with that, I want to bid everyone adieu. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll see everyone this time next week. We have some really cool stuff going on. So with that, goodbye, good night, and we'll see everyone later.